Welcome everybody to I, the Serpent Tarot, for another pick a card. So today we're going to look at a kind of a shadow topic, though in a very positive, I think, and light-honoured way. And because we're going to be looking at fears, but we're not going to be looking at them as sort of something to control your life, or that you have to sort of understand because they are holding you back and just kind of like putting them in your kit bag and knowing what's going on. This is not really about this. This is about the ones that you're ready to conquer and release. So they're probably reasonably conscious, I would say, or if not, something, an event or a sort of an equal and opposite courage and wish and desire is going to release the fear or fears that we're talking about. So that's the idea of the reading, to identify what they are, to right at the beginning kind of see a number of elements of it using imagery and concepts and symbols that we might see in dreams, because dreams and nightmares very much connect us to both our hopes and our fears. And also, right at the beginning, we're going to almost get you what I would almost call a psychopomp of the journey to conquer a fear. So a psychopomp is normally taking, somebody between the worlds when they pass over, but as a concept of a kind of a deity or an energy that is able to somehow bring energies and understanding that helps you release the fear. We're going to start with that and the description of it, and then we're going to look at how you can identify it, use it, conquer it, and all of those sort of things. So that's the idea. So it will be positive, but it will have a shadow side, and at various points we'll be asking sort of shadow questions or looking at what needs to be balanced so that you can best conquer and release the fear that we're talking about. So that's probably all I really need to say at this point, except I will say in some readings that I've been doing, pick a card readings I've been doing, at the end I've been doing a thing where I ask you to choose between 1 and 5, where I use another tarot deck from what I've used in the reading so far to bring out a corresponding tarot card for each of those numbers, which kind of gives a more specific understanding and encapsulating on the message for you depending upon which one you choose. There's a way to kind of differentiate out a bit in a collective reading. I mean, you're never going to do it completely, but at least to another degree, to add another degree of personalisation to it. So bear that in mind. If you do listen to introductions, I'll repeat it when I get to that point in the readings, because not everybody listens to introductions, but if you have, bear that in mind and be ready for that. So beyond that, what we are using to kind of identify and describe the fear is cards from the Lucid Dream Metro deck that I have. So you see one there. I shuffled and asked for one that's kind of a dominant energy around the fear, and then we are going to have a couple of other cards that tell us a little bit more about it, like could be sort of sub-fears, related fears or whatever. So we get a sense about, is it one overarching fear that you're going to conquer, or is it kind of a constellation? So that's how we're going to work it out, and that's how we can hopefully help you choose the pile. Though, of course, if you always go to pile 2, go to pile 2. If you just like to pause and contemplate the images or contemplate the number and just go towards that, do that. Do whatever works for you. And you can, of course, go to more than one reading. There might be more than one fear or set of fears that you can release now. That's completely up to you. But for pile number 1, we have boat. So this talks about adventure, travel, exploration, love, spiritual journey. So the fear could be in any of those sort of areas, and the other cards we have might give us a better idea. For pile number 2, we have eye, vision, observation, perception, judgment, soul awareness. And for pile number 3, we have face, identity, integrity, confidence, emotions, authenticity, and health. So if any of those sort of energies kind of draw you towards you, there's something that I'm sort of fearful about. Either right now, it could be a fear that you're dealing with right now, or it could be just something that's always been a bit of a fear. But whatever works for you, you find the reading or readings that you want to go to. The timestamps will be in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So you came to the reading with boat. As I said, we've got another couple of cards from the Lucid Dream Metro deck. We have a couple of cards over here we'll look at later around sort of divine, masculine and feminine energy, bringing that into balance and the support that you have for that. So that'll come in later. But as I say, we also have let's call it a kind of fear psychopomp, for want of a better terminology, a deity energy to support you and to help get a bit of an idea about, I think, how you're going to go about overcoming this fear. Now, the interesting thing, I'm going to start with this first because I think it's going to turn out in all the readings to be kind of the dominant energy of the fear, and then we see some almost other related fears or energies that are associated with why we feel that. So as I said when I read out boat in the introduction, we have adventure, travel, exploration, love and spiritual journey. I doubt, to be honest, that there is a spiritual journey. Oh, there could be. There is an aspect of this could be a spiritual journey around finding who you are when you don't feel that you are fitting in spiritually, potentially, and what you feel might be karmically there in your attic, which I'll get to. So it's a possibility. And there's also a possibility this could be about love. Again, feeling like, what will you find someone to connect with? Will you, like with what you have, as I say, kind of in the upper part of the mind. The attic is kind of like in the upper part of the mind. Do you overthink it? Do you feel different? Do you feel like it's impossible on that level? Like love's too hard, I'm too different. If people get to know, what I really think and feel, they're not going to love me back. That kind of energy could be going on. But I think because of Viridian being here, the Viridian could work with either of those things, feeling more like you are finding your spiritual pathway and breaking through that block, or finding love. They definitely could work in those. And we'll see what we get with tarot, because tarot might show that is quite a big part of it. But I feel like the earlier part of this, and the fact that we've got the boat as a symbol of it, is probably more to the point, because it's talking about adventure, travel and exploration. Viridian is a god of the hunt. So it is about being brave and so it definitely is showing the courage, but it's the courage to focus on what you want and go towards it and feel able to do that, get the exhilaration of it. And we think about adventure, travel and exploration. You may have a fear of the sort of implications of that. So a really classic way of looking at it, when we also have alien, misunderstood, outsider, hermit, and then we do have spiritual journey again there, ungrounded, fearful, hiding, searching, overthinking with the addict. You might be someone who theoretically would love to go on an adventure, would love to explore, but you're sort of fearful about whether you could fit in. Like on a very practical level, it could be I'd love to go, like for me, not that I'm necessarily someone who really likes to travel, but if I did have this and I wanted to travel, it could be, like I'm really, really not very good at languages at all. And, and if I go to a culture where it's really different and the language isn't there, like how am I going to, that's really scary. That makes me feel really isolated. It would make me feel fearful about whether I really could even get my bearings. So on a very practical level, there could be something here about wanting to expand your horizons. And this is the fear that you can break through, the fear of doing that when you feel that you wouldn't be understood, you're different in some way, and that it's hard to stop kind of over-analysing. You kind of get analysis paralysis. And Viridian is here saying you're ready to break through that and go on an adventure. You just need to want something enough, I think. When you think about the hunt, you need to almost have the objective. So I think that what could be going on here is if there's a generalized, I kind of stay at home and I don't travel and I don't explore because at least I feel comfortable that I belong here. I don't feel alien and I don't have to overthink things because everything is really familiar. But, there's a part of me that would like to go and do something more. I'm just a bit fearful of what that all means. Then I think Viridian is saying take on the aspect of the hunter, like want something enough. Think of the country that you really want to go to, or the city that you really want to go to. Or it doesn't even have to be an adventure that's literally travel. It could be, as I say, a spiritual journey, like where do you want to try shamanic journeying for the first time, or something like that, like feeling like you won't fit in though, or wanting to go and join a group to look into something spiritual that would be that way inclined. Or as I said, love, like allowing yourself to fall in love when you're not sure whether you're going to be accepted, allowing yourself to just focus on what you want and go for it and then work it out as you go along, rather than trying to have a plan for every contingency and have it as little change as possible so you don't feel like you don't belong. There's some sort of energy like that, and Viridian, as I say, will bring you that focus. So that the kind of answer, the courage that's coming through is something that you want enough, I think. I think what this is saying is that you're ready to release the fear of the new and the fear of adventure and exploration that comes from thinking, is this going to work? Am I going to fit in? Is it really right for me? Instead of doing that, saying, actually, I'm going to explore and I'll work it out as I go along, has something to do with something that matters enough to you. And that's what you will hunt. That's the energy that you will go after. So let's get tarot and have a look at that. We want to have a look at how is the fear manifesting now, limiting you now, then what can spur the release? And I do think we've got a bit of an answer to that already, but we'll see what else Tarot wants to say. Because this might also tell us how much this is about love. There is a possibility it's about love. There's also a possibility it's primarily a spiritual journey. But I think for most of you, it's about expanding your horizons in the material world and in different cultures and in different situations or a different workplace or something. You're kind of comfortable where you are, but maybe a bit bored is sort of the feeling about it. But the fear of the new sort of holds you to what's familiar. So we'll have a look at what can spur the release, and then we'll see what new perspective and courage is taking the place of the fear. And I'm using the Sunflower Field Tarot because I just wanted something. I feel like sunflowers and light and everything is all about bringing the light to things, taking away the shadows, allowing us to conquer our fears. So firstly, a little bit more about what is this fear? What is the fear really that's limiting you, or what is the nature of it that's limiting you? Queen of Wands, Ace of Cups, the Chariot. And there's definitely travel, but there could be love as well with the Ace of Cups there. It might depend on who's come to the reading. Wheel of Fortune reversed. Okay. Strength. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's the I'm always not quite ready. That's the issue here. In reality, you are more ready than you think. And you're quite self-actualized. But it's in a weird way that's actually part of the problem. Where you are very self-actualized. You know your environment, you know who you are, all of that kind of thing. And so it's sort of like, if it's not broke, why fix it, is almost the energy that you have around this. But there is this call for something more, something new, something that stirs you spiritually or emotionally. And it could be around love, or it could be around travel. Travel is definitely part of this, I think, whether it's travel inside to connect with others and so forth on a kind of psychological, emotional level, or whether it's travel in the world. But what's going on is you never think it's the right time. And it's a combination of I'm not quite ready and I'm not feeling quite strong enough to do this, or I'm really strong where I am. So, it's not time to shift that. So I feel like this is an interesting fear. I think it's a fear that's kind of denied in a way. It's not, you would probably say, oh no, I'd really like to travel and do things like that. I'm not really afraid of it. It's just, it's not the right time, and I'm building my strength here. And, it feels a bit like a really good example of this is, to move from one organization to another. And maybe the second organisation has heaps more opportunity with it, heaps more ways that you could spread your wings, but you're really comfortable. A bit like the big fish in a small pond, I don't really want to be the small fish in a big pond. But to really come into all that you could be and really expand your horizons, and you've got a lot of strength and ability, you need to do that. But it's you would be saying to yourself, oh, I'm not really against the concept of exploration and doing something new, and I'm not really that worried about not fitting in. It's just not quite the right time. I've got responsibilities here, or this is working really well, but this is almost a hint of the underlying thing that's pushing towards the change, which is what we're going to look at. There is a sense of something new, some new thing that could be more emotionally fulfilling in either the travel, in a relationship, in a spiritual journey, or in a different job, something like that. So this is not a major fear that you're at this level really kind of focusing on. You're focusing on the strength you have where you are, rather than the insecurity you might feel somewhere new. But as I say, you're clever, so you just go, oh, it's not quite the right time. I'm open to it, but it's not quite the right time. So to break through that fear, this is probably an indication that there is something that will come along that matters enough, and you need to do something like that. You need to move towards your destiny. Because right now, you're not, I would say. You've done well in something, but it's not fully what you could do. So that's why Spirit wants you to sort of break through this fear. On your surface, you don't seem like you're fearful at all. But there is a sort of sense of, what do I lose if I'm different, or in as I say, a more, less known environment, and there is a sense that you overthink it rather than just going with the impetus to move forward. So let's have a look at what can spur the release for you. What spurs the release of this fear? 8 of Wands. Judgment. Yeah, there's a calling. You've got a calling coming. 3 of Cups reversed. Knight of Cups. All right, I think there is love associated with this, actually. I didn't sort of feel, when I just looked at it, it just felt like, a very classic, do you want to get out in the world or change a job or change an industry or change an approach? And that could well be it. But I think the thing that's going to make you actually first deal with this fear, or the thing that's calling you to deal with this fear, has got to do with a new love energy. Like whether it's a romantic love or whether it's a love of a new creative sort of idea or a love of humanity or something like that. But there is an energy around either an offer that's coming to you emotionally that is requiring you to spread your wings somehow and be in an environment that doesn't feel comfortable, or it's kind of your own energy about wanting to help. It does look like it's a complex situation. If this was a relationship, one of the things that may be making you feel this way and bring the fear up for you to deal with it is with Three of Cups reversed, there's either maybe a third party and you feel like they fit in more with the person, but you still want to explore this. You're still feeling the energy. So you still have to kind of, with Viridian, hunt for what you want. You have to go after what you want, but there's maybe that energy, or there could be some other disturbance. You literally, if this is love, you literally could be falling in love with someone who is in a very different culture. So you do feel really different and it could cause a bit of consternation. So like it's sort of like this opportunity is raising this to the surface, all the issues about how you fit in with other people, because you're very comfortable in who you are and you can kind of put off a lot of this, but there seems to be an emotional thing, whether it's romantic love or, as I say, whether it's some sort of cause or creative energy. But there is some truth that to take this on, you have to deal with where you're different. But this is a calling. Like this is like, there is something that is literally calling this to you. There is a sense of destiny around this, and it will actually liberate you. I think the thing that's sort of confusing to me is I feel like there's travel associated with it as well, because the Eight of Wands and the boat, there is travel in some way. But as I say, whether that's a spiritual journey within, whether it's travel emotionally from being very self-contained and single into a relationship, or whether it's sort of literal travel, to create something, to move jobs, to even up to moving overseas or something like that. So it's very, very different. Is part of this calling. There is an offer. There is an offer that does this, though. I feel like it's not so much that you want to offer something. I think an offer is made to you for most people for this. So that's going to spur the change, the opportunity. And that kind of makes sense. Whether it's love, whether it's a job, whether it's something creative, whatever this is that is asking you to expand your horizons, not overthink it and not worry about whether you're different, because being different is partly the point. Whatever it is, there is something coming to you that spurs this, because you are reasonably comfortable where you are. So you're not having to look at it. So then what is the nature of the courage? A new perspective that takes the place of the fear of being alien, the fear of having to overthink it, the fear of what expansion could do, the fear of whether you'll fit in, all of that kind of energy. What is the courage that takes its place? Page of Wands, Page of Coins, the Fool, yeah. Being ready to do it, being ready to go on the journey and whatever the journey is, but planning, doing some good planning. It's not over analyzing, it's getting that into balance. It's knowing that there are certain things that you can't plan for, but you plan for everything you can. You plan around what is the vision of this? What do I want from this creatively, passionately, romantically, even just in kind of exploration, fun, whatever it is. Like what is almost, if this was a journey, what's the itinerary? What do I really want to experience? What are the logistics of it? What can I plan? I'll put all of that in place. And then I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go on the journey. And I'm not going to overthink it anymore. And yes, I'm going to be different than some of these things, but that's okay. And that's part of the point. So I feel like it's a releasing of an energy of like the innocence, but because you have a tendency when you are fearful to overthink, it's like do what you can and then let it go. That is the way. It's the understanding that, every choice we make, we don't have all the information. It doesn't matter what it is. Like even if you're making a choice that, you're going to go out for a walk and you think, the weather looks okay. And then, like maybe a storm comes through really fast. Whatever. We don't always have perfect information. That's what life is. Like getting ready to plan all that you can do is like I can control some of that, and I can use what I know already to actually equip me for the journey. So it's getting ready for it by not underestimating what you've achieved already, but allowing that to to give you what you need to carry, in a sense, to move forward. So let's have a look at some questions. Let's get into this on another level. We're going to look at this on a shadow and light level because, as I say, like particularly like for this, I don't think that you necessarily would have thought this was a fear you had. So it's interesting you came. Maybe you came to this reading because you always come to pile number one, or you just felt drawn to it. Or you might have thought it was more around love or spiritual journey, and it could be. But this sort of feels like, even if it's love, it's like you know what your passion is and you know what you want from it materially. Like, do I want to commit a relationship? And then you just jump in. So you could have come for that reason, but I think by and large, this is a fear that you only become aware of when an opportunity comes up. So I would say one either just has or is about to. But let's just look at a couple of really deep shadow questions to ask, and then we'll look at some light energy to balance it, to help you release the fear. Because you are going to release the fear. That's the point of this reading. It's not really in question that you're going to do it. This is just to sort of show you what it is and how. So the first question: how do I handle change and what resistance do I have to it? Yeah, there's something about change. And I think this is telling you something about the resistance. It's because you are so good in the environment you're in. It's sort of like it feels like it's taking a risk to go into something else where it could be different. And maybe you struggle quite a bit to be really comfortable where you are. And so it's like, oh, do I want to go through all that again? The second shadow question to ask is, what are my hidden desires and passions that I've neglected? Yeah, and like, what have you, because you're comfortable, you've kind of put off and said it wasn't the right time. So whether it's to really understand that you have an issue with handling change because you kind of almost don't want to go back to first principles and start again in some way. And secondly, it's like, what are you kind of suppressing as desires because you don't want to do that? So let's get a couple of light energy. So around handling change, what does Spirit suggest? Okay, don't take the bait. I think this is from within, because I think there is something coming from out that is actually calling you to do something. And I think to conquer the fear, you need to actually go out and do it. I think it's don't take the bait of your own worries. Like when you kind of and you must be the hunter, not the hunted. That's the other thing, because you've got viridian. So in whatever this is, you need to make sure that whatever you're actually exploring is what you want to explore. It's not just somebody sort of says, do this to prove something. It's got to be what you want to do. Then if you do the change, don't take the bait of feeling like you've got to overanalyze. Just do what is necessary and then move on. But yeah, and don't be the hunter. Be the hunter. Don't be the hunted. Be the hunter. Okay, and then what about your hidden desires and passions? Best get to work here. Like this is something you should be looking at. You've done well with doing it anyway. It's very interesting the bee would come up when we're using the sunflower field tarot. Like you've done some really good work. I think it's partly to say to you, it almost feels like you self-actualized and did some really good stuff with something that maybe didn't matter to you quite as much. So this is now, you know what, you've got a prototype here. It's now time to realize that you're more than capable of doing this. So just get on with it. Don't take the bait to feel that change is too much of a difficulty or to feel that you'd be hunted or different or alien. Just do what you've been doing, because you actually do have the kind of mechanisms within to succeed. Okay. So then let's look at some chakra energy. Just a couple of chakra energies that either may be in balance, which is something you can use, or out of balance that you need to think about in conquering this fear. So firstly, a crown chakra energy. Oh no, that's just a purple card. They are, and there's a few of them that don't actually have anything. So firstly, a third eye. I see and can have mental fog. Yeah, part of this, it's interesting because I feel like you actually, without realizing it, do kind of telepathize into other people. You are going to be able to get past, feeling alien or different, because it's part of how you've been successful before, and you may not have realized you've done it, but it may be that it can be overwhelming. So I think that part of the thing, this is why you plan for what you're going to allow in spiritually and telepathically, and don't let the rest in. It's don't try and take in too much and again overanalyze, because you'll just end up in a mental fog. And solar plexus, balanced. I do have healthy self-esteem. Yes, you do. You right from the beginning, Queen of Wands. So remember that. Like, remember that you're actually, pretty on point. You don't really need to kind of overthink this. It's like, it's partly when you allow all the worry to come in and everybody else's expectations and all that, like, overcrowds you. So put some boundaries around it. And we're also going to get just a piece of straight talking advice. This could be anything, but it's just like what Spirit also wants to say to you about this. Okay, that's interesting. Goals reversed. I think at the moment it's asking you to think about your goals, because and like, are you actually suppressing some of your goals because you're comfortable? But also there's an interesting double message here, because it also fits with this. If you have the goal, if you've clarified the goal that you're really after, you can let go of all the other little goals. Just prepare for it and go with it, because there's a certain degree of flexibility that's going to have to happen. You're not necessarily, whether it's in a new relationship, a new job or whatever, you don't know all the things in this terrain. That's part of the point of it. So you need flexible goals as well. So you need to get some new goals to get the spurring on to expand in this way and to meet your destiny and your calling. But equally, you need to be flexible, because that's part of the point of exploration. Okay, let's have a look at what divine masculine and feminine energy is going to support and balance you in this. So divine feminine, we have bust, play. Yeah, it's like, have a bit of fun. Like this, you may be a little bit serious, like you're very success oriented. You may be a little bit serious. Like, part of this is having fun. It's like, whether it's falling in love, whether it's a spiritual journey, whether it's something in your material world, have a bit of fun with it, because that's how you can explore without getting too much in the analysis paralysis. And we have a cat also, which is dedication. Have fun, but be dedicated to the goal. And it's interesting that, like, a cat, so the male energy there is a bit like the male deity. That's your psychopomp for this. This is sort of, there is a thing to focus on. This is, with the Chariot coming up and Judgment coming up, this is part of your destiny, whether it's a love relationship, whatever it is that you kind of fear but want, and you want to explore, but you're kind of a bit afraid of it. You think, like, what's the cost? Be dedicated to what you do, but have a bit of fun. And I think this might be the goals thing as well too. Find the true goal that you would be dedicated to, but then have a little bit of fun with how you deal with it and how you go towards it. And that's how you're going to achieve this, and how you get past the fear. It's how you manage that fear that's within. Okay, so let's also just get you a couple of planetary pairings as well to help you with this. To help you with the conquering of this fear and the going towards whatever this kind of destined thing is. Destined love, destined spiritual development, destined new job, destined creative pathway, whatever it is that is exploration for you. We have Pluto and Pluto. Yeah, it is big. I don't think you can ignore it. It also says the fear is bigger than you think. The fear of change is probably bigger than you think. But interestingly enough, it also says you have the power to do it. I also feel when I see Pluto there, there's something here about, maybe, if you particularly if you do spiritual meditation or whatever, like kind of connecting into the Plutonian realms. There's something there that will give you some extra sort of power, some extra strength and ability to do it. And I also think it's suggesting that there's a change operating now, and then beyond that there's an even bigger one. And it's all towards you going towards what is your destiny, but you've got to kind of trigger the change, and feel strong and able to go with it. But it's like the fear is quite a deep-seated one, because the change is quite big. And then we have Venus and Uranus. Yeah, for a lot of you it is about love, or about, I don't know, something creative and like a new inspiration. But otherwise, like almost falling in love with change and with evolution and revolution, that kind of energy is what will help you, because you really are able to do it. And you do have the strength to do it, but it's like, it's almost like, oh, I did it and then I threw away the guide I had for doing it, and now I'm not really sure how to do it. So I'm just going to stay where I am because it's comfortable. But there's some desire, something that you're going to want, and that's going to trigger this. So you kind of need to fall in love with that energy and enjoy it and have a bit of a good time. Be dedicated to what you want to do, but have a good time with it. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, and if you don't listen to introductions then you won't know, so I'll explain it now. to finish off, I usually use like one card from an oracle deck or whatever, but every once in a while now I'm using a second tarot deck, and I'm going to ask you to pick a number from 1 to 5, and I'm going to then deal out 5 tarot cards. And like, depending upon the number, that is I'll talk about your synergizing message at the end of this reading. So if you haven't got a number already because you didn't listen to the introduction, then please pause the video and think about it, or unless one's just instantly come into your head. So I'm shuffling now, and then I'm going to lay out the cards. Okay, so for number 1, we have Wheel of Fortune. For number 2, we have the King of Wands reversed. For number 3, we have the Page of Swords reversed. For number 4, we have the 5 of Wands reversed. And for number 6, we have the Hanged Man. Okay, so I think this is telling us a little bit about what is synergizing here is like a core part of why this is a fear. And like, to bear in mind, you are going to be able to move past this, but it's also another layer of understanding. For if you chose number 1, you have a fear of things happening at the right time, and maybe also that you don't have as much choice in things as you would like. And there might be something about this that feels like it doesn't have a choice. For some of you, it may be triggered by something that has no choice. It could be a big change happens to your work environment and you have to leave where you are, and then you have to start out somewhere new. So even if you didn't feel it was the right time, you're going to have to. I think you have a little bit of fear or ambivalence about what your destiny is and a sense of what it is. Because as I say, we've got both the Chariot and Judgment, both of which I would associate with that sort of energy coming up in the main reading. And here we have the Wheel of Fortune. So there's something about timing and about destiny and about how you can stay on the rise, because I think you've done really well in something. And this environment, or you feel really good within yourself. And so this, you feel that puts you at a risk of the wheel falling. Now, what I would say about that is even if it did, it will rise again. And you know you have the strength. If you chose number 2, there may be some ego issues associated with either yours or someone else's. So it may be that what you want to explore, you're up against, like somebody who is competing with you or has an ego issue around it. And that might be the other thing that makes you feel hesitant. So, they have a more connection to the person you're interested in, or they're more established in the workplace, or you've heard that there's sort of someone who's a bit of a despot there, or whatever it might be. So if that's someone else, then that's an issue to know you have the strength and ability. As the Queen of Wands upright, you are actually stronger than the King of Wands reversed. If this is you, then you are suppressing some of your own sort of like wish to act. It's like you feel like you've gone so far and you can't go any further. It's not fair to go any further, or you're worried again about the loss. So there's an ego issue around this, somebody else's or yours, that you need to be aware of. If you chose number 3, Page of Swords reversed, the communication around this is not clear. And it may be one of the things that's particularly making you wonder. If it's a love relationship, one of the things that may make you feel a bit alien or worried is that maybe your love language and the other person's love language are quite different. So, you might be someone who expresses love through gifts, and they might be someone who expresses it through talking a lot, and it's different, and you need to adjust. There's something in this where the communication and information is a little bit out of whack, and that's something that you need to look at and understand, because if your fear is sort of being exacerbated, or it's harder to release it because of what you think are the facts of the situation, double check them. If you chose number 4, 5 of Wands reversed, you're a little bit conflict averse. So part of this might be, I don't want to be in a situation of conflict. I don't want to cause conflict. So there may be something about that. You are strong enough to do this, and you need to think about how to do that. It's part of what the change energy is. So if there is conflict, it won't be major, by the way, with 5 of Wands. It's not a major thing. So don't let it override what you need to do. And if you chose number 5, you may think there's a big sacrifice associated with this. And maybe there is, but you might find, in fact, because we had the spiritual journey, you may find, in fact, that what you think is a sacrifice becomes an enormous enlightenment and an enormous freedom. There is a different perspective that needs to be brought to this, which makes a lot of sense for a reading that's about what fears are you about to conquer. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope it was helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with I. which, as I said in the introduction, vision, observation, perception, judgment, soul awareness. So this has something to do with you seeing something, being seen, or seeing something that's very true to your soul. It requires some form of judgment, or you feel that you could be judged. There is a sense of like watching something, and it may be that the fear is playing out in being watchful rather than moving towards something. What I will say though, I mean, these are some cards we'll look at later for divine masculine and feminine energies around this, but when I look at the two other aspects of this, I would say almost definitely this has to do with relationship, with love, family, connection, the outcomes of things. It could literally be when we have union, love, partnership, connection, intimacy, desire, libido, and then baby, innocence, new beginning, motherhood, pregnancy. This could be a fear about a committed relationship, a relationship where you start a family. It could be fears about whether you're going to be able to do that or not, or whether you're going to be judged worthy of it, or whether when you look at what, you may have looked at something, in your own family with your parents, it mightn't have been a very happy relationship, for instance, where you've observed and judged something and wondered, what are the risks associated with that? But it's definitely connected with that. I don't think there's any way when you've got those cards connected to this that this can be about anything other than some form of either love or starting a family or if it's just love, and this is like the innocence, it's like not knowing where a relationship is going to go, not knowing whether you're going to be seen fully, knowing if you're seeing fully, like all of those things. And so there's a kind of a mystery around it, but it's in that space. So if you don't feel that you have any kind of fear around that, if you're really settled, then maybe pick another reading because it's going to be about this. There might be some nuances with tarot, but I don't think there's any doubt. Interestingly, your psychopomp, as I sort of said, I'm like looking at psychopomp here, not as sort of going between life and death, but more as a very powerful guide energy to help you navigate from fear into courage. Nexus, Scorpio, I saw Scorpio, I thought, well, there you go, this is intense. But she is sort of a chthonic goddess. She is a goddess of the void, of the abyss, of the unknown, and of the creative potential of all. So the baby may literally be about starting a family, or it may be a creative energy that comes from a union with someone. It is possible for some of you, it may be a union that isn't about love, but is about some other partnership and what you could create. And you're sort of fearful of doing that because you're used to doing everything on your own. So tarot might bring some of that up. But for most of you, this is an intense relationship. So it's either that meeting someone, or it could be something that you have met someone is triggering that fear, or it could be that you are fearful of that and you are backing away from it, not letting it start in the first place. So let's get tarot and let's see what we can find. So we are going to look firstly at how is this fear or limitation manifesting at the moment to get a little bit more of an idea. Then we're going to have a look at what would trigger you breaking through the fear. Like what is the thing that could make you move beyond the fear, as is promised by the topic of this reading. And then we'll have a look at what new perspective and courage takes its place. So a little bit more about the fear itself. Justice, the Hanged Man, Three of Coins reversed, Knight of Coins, Knight of Wands reversed. So the interesting thing about that is this does feel like it's about love, connection or whatever, but it looks to me like it is more the manifestation of what this means in terms of a partnership, in terms of a family, and it could also be, as I say, it could be a partnership that's more business than love, but there's something like that, creativity and all that kind of thing, more than being a fear of romance. So I don't think that your fear is of romance. Your fear is of the implications of the commitment to something and what that means. Now, for some of you, it may be an issue about like whether someone around you is truly a friend or something more, and the fear of losing the friendship, or, what are the implications of all of that, or whether the foundation is there. But it's like you look like anything that kind of creates a legal structure, like a family, a business partnership, whatever this might be, at the moment, you are feeling like that requires a sacrifice. And it requires a dedication that maybe takes away your freedom. So this looks like whether it is a business partnership, and it's possible with some of these sort of cards, but for the most part, I think this is much more likely to be love. Whether it's like, I have a fear of getting married or moving in because my freedom is gone. That's a sacrifice. Or, I'm worried that, like people are observing that and working out, and judging me for staying free if you've stayed free. this fear is around the implications of a connection and the new potential that it brings about. So, and it's very specific. It's about you feeling, I mean, you could feel unfairly judged or whatever, that you have to sacrifice too much and too much freedom because you would be, going into some sort of partnership where that's required, for you to be accepted, for instance. So there's something like that going on. Or you just have a feeling like, oh, if I tie myself down to, a love relationship or a family or even to some sort of business partnership, I'm going to have to be dedicated to it. I'm not sure if there's enough there, given what I've got to give up, which is my freedom. So, okay. So the interesting thing about this fear is that, you could be right in this circumstance. I think the point, and it could also be wrong. I'm not saying you are right. But what I'm saying about this is that if that fear is an overriding energy, then when the right connection comes up, you're going to reject that as well. So this is to understand that so that you could potentially find the right connection and feel this, I do feel comfortable with this. And this could be very deep-seated. You may not even really know. You just might be thinking, I just like to be footloose and fancy-free, but I'm not really afraid of anything else. But there is a kind of a fear of losing autonomy for some reason. And as I say, some of it might have been something you've observed before in a workplace or in a family relationship or something like that. So let's see what it is that will spur moving past this. You're confronting this and moving past it. Now, as I say, it doesn't necessarily mean, in conquering the fear, it doesn't necessarily mean that something has to come in like a love relationship and you have to get married and you have to have kids. It's not saying you have to do something. It's saying it brings it to the surface so it's no longer the thing that makes you decide. You decide more from what you want. So you go into the depths of the unknown of it without fear, and you really you release the fear, so your choice is about what you want, not what you're trying to avoid. So what could trigger this release? King of Swords reversed, Temperance reversed, Queen of Wands reversed, Ace of Cups reversed. Firstly, this is why you've got Nexus. It's something very deep-seated. It's probably not something that is really that obvious on the surface. So it's not telling me, there is a possibility that there's a new love or something coming in, or the possibility of a child or something like that, but it hasn't manifest yet. It's just the possibility of it. But I think for some of you, there's something that you've seen that was very unfair. I think you've seen something already. And if you bring that up to the surface and remember it and think about what that's done, you see how it's made you imbalanced about things and how it's stopping you from following what you would love. I think for many of you, you've seen it in your family or you've seen it in a workplace or something. Something that was unfair, something that was wrong, something that was not honest, and something that suppressed the creative energy, the autonomy and so forth of someone else. So I feel that the trigger has to go within, because it's not I don't think necessarily that the thing that's going to trigger this into being is when you find a new love. It's possible. If that's the case, it probably hasn't happened. Or, find a new job, hasn't happened yet. This is actually a fear you can conquer now by going in and understanding what that's telling you, so that you free yourself from preconceived judgments, both of yourself but also, of others. And you free yourself to make decisions about new beginnings and family and love or new business partnerships or whatever without thinking the past is going to repeat. So your trigger to come out of this is in the past in some way. And I don't know that it's necessarily something that's happened to you. It could have been, but it's to realize it's something that is past and that is not sort of somehow emblematic of everything. So let's see what new courage, what new sort of approach you can put in its place. If you do go within with Nexus and you really look at what this has done, why you have this kind of probably unconscious fear of commitment, I think, really. It's a commitment phobic energy. What can replace it? Page of Cups reversed, the World, the Six of Coins. Okay. So, closing out, having the courage to close out on old emotional patterns that are not taking you where you want. You actually have a lot of emotional maturity. You've gone from the Ace to the 10. So part of this, it's very understandable, whatever this commitment phobic is. You've seen something that is legitimately a problem, in whatever this is. And it really, you have really protected your heart. And in many ways, that's been functional for you. But it's reached the point where it's not allowing you then to go forward to get what you want. You protected yourself from things that are wrong, but you're not allowing that open. So finishing that process, letting that go, and understanding that allowing new beginnings, allowing new connections or whatever is almost an act of generosity, because it's part of what's going on here. Partly you have the power. You can decide who you do and don't connect with, who you do and don't, any of that sort of thing. You are in a strong enough position to do that. But it's also understanding that we are all flawed. So whatever has happened in the past doesn't necessarily have to replicate, but it almost has to be forgiven. Because until you do that, you can't get to the point where you could believe that something would be worthwhile committing to. So there's something like that. It's like it's starting to reclaim what you would really want emotionally, as opposed to avoiding the disappointment of it not happening, like closing that out and being generous enough with yourself and others to allow this to potentially go. But, if you need at first to have almost a bit of a dominance in a situation, whether it's in a relationship or whatever, that's fine. It doesn't make you a bad person. You just might need that if you've seen where that's been ill-applied. And then eventually, because of the generosity energy of the Six of Coins, you can actually move past that. Okay, so one of the things that's important around this is to understand what are some of the shadow questions that's underneath it. So we're going to get a couple of shadow questions and then a couple of light energies to help advise how to deal with those. So the first shadow question about this, I think commitment phobia, I think that's what this is. What are the times I've compromised my values? That's interesting. How did it affect me? You may have felt that was the case too sometimes. When you made commitments or whatever, you felt that you compromised your values or what you desired, and like you don't want to get caught doing that again. And values matter a lot here. There's something you actually think was fundamentally wrong in whatever it is that you're avoiding now, however you're avoiding a connection, there's something that did go wrong. And, like you may be like, I am not going to get caught in that compromising position again. Secondly, do I allow myself to experience and express all my emotions? And I think the answer is no, you don't. Because you're worried about the consequences. So let's have a look. You can come past this. Remember, this is a fear you're going to conquer. So let's see a light energy around the compromising, the issue where you're worried about that. It's all energy and expression. Like it's all in flow and expression. So yes, maybe you felt you let yourself down. Maybe you've seen others compromise their values, but this is just all energy and expression. You can make the decision about how you go forward. And you can't control the other person because they're going to have their energy and expression, but you can control yourself and know that you can. Now you come from a good place, a very moral place. So you could be observed in this. If you're worried about being observed for whether you're doing the right thing, you can make the decisions to do that. And do I allow myself to express all my emotions? Reconciliation. Okay. This could be for some of you that there is something, maybe there was a breakup with someone. That's the other way that this could operate, either in love or in work, because it felt wrong. And you wondered whether you did some of the wrong things as well as the other person. And maybe there is a possibility to reconcile. So that's very specific. It's not going to be the case for everybody, but it could be literally like that. There could be that there is actually still an opportunity to look at that, but you have to move past the fear of like being caught in something if it isn't what you want. But otherwise, I think it's reconciling your emotions with your choices. Like, because this is asking you about expressing your emotions. So reconciling that you do have emotions, that it's not like you can sort of, be an island and be separated from them. Okay, let's see some chakra energy to either bring into balance if you need to, or to leverage if it is in balance. The solar plexus. Balance. I do have the ability to meet challenges. Yes, know that you do. You actually do. This is what I'm saying. You can express the thing here. You can make choices. You don't have to replicate something in the past, whether it was yours or somebody else's. And root chakra, underactive, I'm disconnected. Yeah, that's what you've got to reconnect to your own emotions, but also reconnect to others. The way that you've dealt with all of this has been to disconnect. So it's like but you have the power. You do have the energy to do it. So let's just get a straight talking piece of advice around all of that. You are good enough. Yeah, okay. So I don't know. I do think that you worry about whether you would be accepted and like whether the commitment would be returned. Like, so some of the commitment phobia might be, is the other person going to do the right thing? But all of that really comes down to, are you strong enough and good enough to go in and do this? This is all that really matters, because either the other person will or won't, but you still retain that sense that, yes, I can connect, I can do this, I know I'm good enough. That's the thing that you can control, and that's the fear that you can control. And if you know that, you can always move on if the other person doesn't prove to be what they promised to be. So it's like taking back the power. In terms of taking back the power, let's have a look at the divine masculine and divine feminine, God and goddess energy that is going to help you, and that also gives you some elements to bring into balance. Oh, wow. So Mart for justice and divine feminine. Like, there is something that was not right. But there's also the fear of some sort of legal connection, I think, or some sort of like something like that. So this particularly would manifest where that was an issue. And then, wow, for the male, we have Typhon. This connects the chthonic energy, and this is really powerful. Like, this is a very deep-seated thing, and it's a very powerful thing, and we've got anger and rage. There's something you have seen that was not right. Now, there's no doubt about that. Whether you felt you were party to it and it personally hurt you, or whether you saw it, either way, you have a lot of anger about that, and to some degree that's healthy anger. I think part of this is to make you know that the past situation was not healthy, but there is the possibility for a healthy one in the future and a just one in the future. So allow yourself to be angry about something that happened before, either on the behalf of somebody else or on your own behalf, but know that you can bring it into balance and the justice can be brought into being. Don't feel that you're kind of stuck in some chthonic energy that is never going to be just. Like, you're meant to be able to come out of that. Sometimes anger is helpful, and sometimes it's righteous. And once you've done that, you can let that go and then look for something better. Okay, so let's have a look at some astro energy. So also getting for some of you that something around this, you might have been unfairly judged, blamed for something. Know that you're right about that. Be angry about it and let it go. It doesn't have to replicate. So let's get a couple of astrology pairings for other sort of energies that you can help in overcoming this fear. Wow, this came up for one of the others, Pluto and Pluto. This is big in here. For you, this is very deep-seated, but you're very powerful. There's a lot of powerful energy once you do this. You can almost turn this on its head. That's what I think it's trying to say to you. And Sun and Mercury, it's important for you to start to work out what is your life path and what do you want to do, and communicate that. Do you know what I also feel too? I keep going back to these eyes. I mean, they're very beautiful eyes, but I think there's something about a direct stare, directly looking at something, directly observing it, and with power and integrity and speaking your truth. There's something about that as well associated with it, but it's got to do with a connection and something that didn't work, and clearing the anger and the fear that's underneath it, that's somehow going to keep happening, because it's saying it's not going to keep happening. Okay. So last but not least, I did say in the introduction, but not everybody listens to the introduction. Then I'm going to use a second tarot deck, and I'm going to ask you to choose a number between 1 and 5, because I'm going to lay out 5 tarot cards, and depending upon the number that you chose, that will be your message at the end of this that brings it all together. So if you haven't already chosen your number, you might want to pause, unless one can come into your head right now, because in a second I'm going to deal out from 1 to 5. So for 1, we have 7 of Swords reversed. For 2, we have 5 of Swords. For 3, we have 3 of Pentacles reversed. For 4, we have 4 of Pentacles reversed. And for 5, we have the Emperor reversed. Okay, all right. So if you chose number 1, whatever you think underneath, like this is probably a very emotional fear. When you get to what is really rational and you think it through, this is why we got Mart with Justice. This is why we got Justice upright. You will have a very realistic view of it if you can just take some of the emotion out of it and just look at it really logically. You're going to see, that like relationships are different. Just like you have different friendships that have different energies. So do other type of relationships, whether this is around love, family, and I think for most it is, but it could also be around something with business. So trust that you are able to think this through, because you really are. Like, your mind can be really, once you bring this fear to the surface and you recognize it, you'll be able to deal with it realistically. if you chose number 2, there's something you need to walk away from, a battle you need to walk away from to stop having this underlying fear. So it's not that you have to, if you feel an injustice has happened really recently around something like this and you're angry, if you feel you have to have that battle before you could ever believe in it again, it's saying you don't have to. It's like it was just the wrong energy. Move away from it. It's not worth it. It's much more important to kind of detach from that and see it as a thing that was about that person or that situation, and it's not a battle that's worthy of you. If you chose number 3, then there is something about how you think about the structure of things. I think this is particularly if your fear is around some sort of commitment, either emotionally or in terms of business. There's something to go back and rethink about the structure. What would you build? Because it's almost as though there's a belief structure about what is the material outcome of this. It's a bit faulty. So think about that. Once you clear that through, you won't have the same sense of trepidation about things. Kind of similar if you chose 4, actually. This is also saying that like some of the things that are around the structure that you feel you would most rely on are the things that you need to rethink. So the things that made you feel secure if the 4 of Pentacles was upright are the things that need to be kind of deconstructed, because there's a kind of I'm safe where I am, I won't move on sort of energy that to really face this fear and defeat it, you need to face. And if you chose number 5, then there's definitely something about power associated with this. And I think knowing that you have the power separate to another party, this looks like there's another party at some point that created the injustice that you're responding to. So understanding that, and sort of when you become angry and you go for justice, one of the things that's really important, and I think this might be for anybody who chose number 5, is that you don't become the thing you despised. So you don't stay so angry and so judgmental and so combative. It's a bit like the energy of moving away with the second, with number 2, that you could become the thing that you despise. There is somebody here who misused power or something like that, and you could become that. And I'm really thinking when we got Typhon, and we also had, I can't remember her name, but the goddess anyway that was in the underworld, of that saying that when you look into an abyss, I think it was Nietzsche who said it, but I'm not sure. When you look into an abyss, the abyss will also look back out to you. So it's like, just be aware of that. There's a lot of power involved in this, and you need to make sure you keep your own energy clear. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Hope it was helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Face, which talks about identity, integrity, confidence, emotions, authenticity, and health. And one of the things that, like, even as I said that with Face, it made me think of, so this may be part of it for some of you, is the concept of maintaining face, like maintaining honour, maintaining one's reputation. So there could be something associated with that, because it just really struck me as I read Face there. So, and it didn't so much when there was the pick a card element at the beginning, but now I feel it maybe because of some of the cards that are connected with it. These are some cards we'll look at later, which are divine masculine and feminine energies for you. But these are subset fears or help to explain the fear in a little bit more detail. And this is effectively your fear psychopomp. So not a psychopomp in the sense of going from life to death, but from fear to courage, basically. So there's a lot of emotion about this, which I'll get to, but it's a very much in the world kind of energy. For this, when we've got identity, integrity, confidence, emotions, authenticity, health, I don't think this issue is about health, by the way. I think if you are drawn around health, then I think this has, if you have health-related issues, it might have more to do, that might be a subset or a symptom of this other issue. This is about who you are in the world and being seen in the world for who you are and for your ambition, because we've got airplane, drive, ambition, motivation, momentum, radical change, and then we have neon sign, ambition again, fame, glamour, wealth, success, travel. So there's travel, movement, fame, and how you're seen. Some of you may be very famous or may be about to become famous. Some of you may be very ambitious, but I think there's a sort of an issue here, a fear of, it being too obvious or too visible. So for instance, it could be, do I lose my private life if I become famous in some way, whether it's just locally or whether it's across the world? Or if I really go after my ambition, can I keep my true identity and integrity? Or, does the ambition become the neon sign because we've got ambition operating, and like, do I become just an energy towards ambition and towards what I want? So I think there's a kind of almost a fear of success energy here, but for a very specific reason, I think. I think you have a bit of ambivalence about success, about being seen, about being known. And I think whether that's because you've dealt with sort of a lack of privacy or you've seen that happen, or whether you think it just happens to anybody who is very successful, or whether you're worried that you're going to be misunderstood and attacked in some way. There's something like that going on where it's the visibility of it, the visibility of the ambition, and maybe also being reduced to just what your ambition is. Like, it's very interesting when you look at famous people. You look at politicians, they're almost reduced just to whatever their political side is, where they're full people. And some of the famous people we see, whether it's like musicians, it's kind of what is their musical message when their life is probably far more complex than that. When we look at, people on social media, like, is that all they are? There's a kind of reductionist element that can happen with this. But I just think there's something like that that's going on, and you have a deep emotional response to this because you have Oceanus here, and this is a kind of an ocean-based, emotional-based deity, and it's all about the waves of emotion and when emotion can overtake. So my most classic reading of this is of someone who on one level has a lot of ambition but is afraid of that ambition because you're going to be seen, and the emotional impact of how people respond to that and the loss of privacy, all of that is somehow connected to this. But as I say, this could work at any level. It could be an underlying fear. If you are in a workplace and it's time, you're ready to move up the ladder, but you're really worried about how visible you get and how much, if you move from being in a team to managing it, suddenly, you're personally identified with the success of the team in a different way. There could be just some sort of fear about that that's operating. And I feel like you need to conquer that because there's some great opportunities for you. And there are probably ways to keep your privacy, but like get the good side of this and to be seen for what you would want to be seen for. So let's have a look with tarot. So we're going to, first of all, just look a little bit more about what is this limiting fear. Then we're going to look at what might trigger you to move beyond it. And then we're going to look at what courage and perspective replaces it when you do that. So firstly, a little bit more about this fear, which feels like fear of success, fear of visibility, fear of fame. And if you look at this too, and one of the things that really strikes me in this is I think that the fears that we've been exploring in all of them are kind of like a cover story for a desire. Maybe we fear most what we desire. And so there is a kind of like we need to get that sort of thing in balance. But anyway, let's just see what tarot wants to say. Six of Wands reversed. Okay, maybe the fear of not being successful. Queen of Wands reversed. The World. King of Cups. Six of Cups. Okay, it's a little bit of both. So on one level, for some of you, it's not so much the fear of having that, it's the fear of not getting it with the Six of Wands reversed. So it could be, I want to be seen, I want to have that, and I'm afraid I'm not going to have it, and I get very emotional, and that gets in the way of me, what I present, and presenting something that feels authentic and will bring me that. So for some of you, that's the case. There's a kind of I'm not being seen, I'm not able to be my authentic self, and every day I'm going into an office to do a job, but really I want to be on stage singing or something like that, but I'm not recognised. So I'm afraid of the fact that I'll never get that recognised. I want to be out in the world. On the other hand, the other way of reading this is I need to finish this fear of being seen. So it really depends on which applies to you. It's either a fear that I won't succeed in my ambitions and so I kind of almost don't try, or I really do have that ambition but I'm fearful of what that means. Particularly as here there is a lot of emotion around it, but the beauty about this with Oceanus and also with the King of Cups here, you actually do have the emotional fortitude to work this through. when you really understand what the dynamic is, it becomes relatively easy. But there is an innocence here. And like whether that is, I want my privacy, thank you very much. I kind of felt that really strongly when I looked at that. Or I want the innocence of what it is that I wanted to create, what I wanted to show, what my ambition was. Like I want that. I don't want to lose that, and if I go into a jet setter type of, glamorous world, am I going to lose my innocence? So there's like a number of things. Is this a bargain with the devil almost to do it? Do I feel emotionally strong enough? And either will I succeed in having it, or, how do I close out this fear of that? So let's have a look at what precipitates this in particular. So I suspect it's going to be an opportunity to do this in some way, but let's just see what we get. The Lovers, that could be a very important relationship, love or partnership. 5 of Coins, okay. Oh, we've got the blank card. That's the same either way. 7 of Cups reversed. Okay, all right. So a few things could precipitate you really looking at what this is about. For all of you, there is something that is likely to occur that you don't expect because we have the blank card. So I feel like there's a very literal thing that's going to happen that, in the near future that will trigger you to have to look at this fear and decide about it. But it's not, whatever it is does not exist yet. So say it was a fear of fame and fortune. It might be an opportunity is going to come for you to do that. And you could not predict it at the moment or where it came from. If it's the opposite, like you're kind of there and now you're afraid of losing your sort of privacy and how you're going to be judged, something's going to come along that will trigger you to have to work through this. It could be that, like there's a scandal or something and you have to address that and you have to bring the truth out. I'm not saying it will be as dark as that, but that's a possibility. There's a lot here about being seen, known in some way. And there's something that's going to be literally a wild card around it all. It probably is connected to relationships around you. For some, it might be that you are going to actually find yourself in a very public situation because of a connection with someone else. So moving from being alone to being with someone creates this. It could at its best be a power couple, but it definitely brings this whole issue up. So say, you fell in love with and they fell in love with you, someone who was, a famous singer or a famous artist in some way, then you're going to become visible in a way that you haven't been before. So you have to actually deal with that fear about what that means. So it could be a relationship on that level, or it could be a separation from a relationship that allows you to truly do what you need to do when we've got the 5 of Coins there. Whatever it is, though, it keeps saying that you're very realistic and mature about this emotionally. Like there's a lot of emotion, but the fear at the moment, because you haven't brought it to the surface to really look at it and understand it, the emotion just comes in waves and you're not dealing with it. But you are actually very adept with emotion. So once, and an oceanist will help you here, once you realize that, you can bring a lot of realism to how to deal with this, to not over catastrophize it, and to know, if it is about keeping some privacy, how to actually put some realistic boundaries up. So let's see what is the courage and the new perspective that can replace this, fear of success, fear of visibility, or fear that you won't be successful or visible, because either way, you can move past that fear and get to what you want. 9 of Cups reversed. The Hierophant, the Sun. Okay. There is something in the system. There is a system around this. So, whether it's, fame and fortune, Hollywood, political system, social system, your work system or whatever, there is something in the system which you can start to understand and align to what you want. And I think keep some of what really matters to you emotionally and some of your wish private. Like I think with the 9 of Cups reversed, it's like there's something in the system that allows you to move forward and do this without showing the world what your true desire and true wish is. So you can protect that. You can protect the integrity and the purity of that, the innocence of that, because there's something in the system that allows you to do this, allows you. So again, a really good example, if you suddenly became famous, you could have a publicist and other things like that put some boundaries around what people see of your life. So there's something in the system that allows you to do that and will support you in doing what you need to do. So a lot of what you have a fear of, and if it is a fear of not having success, the system that you are in, the industry you're in, will see that. It may not give you 100% of everything, or you may need to protect certain things that are just yours from the system, but it's going to align. So it's like understanding that you get the environment you're in and you can align it to what you want and you can protect that which is precious. That's what you need to understand. So when we're dealing with fears, we often have kind of like shadow questions that are useful to ask to give us a little bit more of a nuance about what's going on. So we're going to get a couple of those and some light energy advice. So the first shadow question to ask in navigating this: what are the toxic relationships or connections that I need to let go of? Yeah, so there could be something very toxic in this environment. So you need to work out what ones, and that's probably the Lovers and the Five of Pentacles. Like, what do you need to separate out from? What do you join with and what do you separate out from? There's something, there's a good reason that you have ambivalence about this. You're going to be okay in this environment, but you do need to be discerning about who to connect with. And the second question is, how do I react to authority figures and what does that say about my childhood? So there could be something here about whether or not what you're doing is something your family would have approved of, and then whether if it wasn't, you would feel like, well, the industry's not going to like it either. Like whether you sort of don't see those in authority as being supportive to you, it's more limiting to you or telling you that something's unrealistic. So I think it's like reconciling that you're actually more able to align with this than maybe as a child. So there's something in your childhood that's also had to do with this. Okay, so let's look at some light energy. So dealing with the toxic people for you. So close you can taste it. Okay, yeah, there's some pretty close people. Also, I think that if the fear is of success, but you do actually really want this success, and the fear is of some form of being seen and known and famous at whatever level, you actually do want it. It's so close you can taste it, but the closer you get to it, the more there are toxic people around. So it's just to be aware of that. And secondly, how do I react to authority figures? So like, how do you break out of that programming? This is the end. Okay, I'm not going to follow that anymore. Just letting that go. What happened in the past is in the past. Going forward, I'm going to be the one who determines. It's interesting, it fell over the Sun card. So taking your authority, I think, is what this is talking about. Okay, what's the chakra energy? What kind of things in your chakras, either a balance that you can deal, like can help with, or which are a little bit imbalanced that you need to be aware of? Firstly, the heart chakra, I love and have connection, balance. So like you do have good connections. I'm saying like there are good, and for some of you, a good connection is what's going to trigger this. But for others, there are good connections and your emotions are really, really on point. Like there will be some toxic people around, but you'll be able to recognize them. You have the choice. Don't be afraid of that, pile 3. And heart again, I love but lose sense of my personal boundaries. That's probably around, it's fallen where the childhood thing is. So you are balanced overall, your emotions are good, but sometimes you give too much power to other people, or you love beyond what is sensible. And that could be connecting to the toxic, but I think it's primarily more around you can have love for your family or whatever, even if they didn't support what you did or whatever. Like you can move beyond that and you can bring that into balance. Let's get you just a little bit of straight talking advice to go along with the energy around this for you. Self-care isn't selfish. Yeah, I think there's something here about looking after yourself, your privacy, what your needs are. If you're going to be sort of like very successful and have a very dynamic life, you may have been taught that you had to do everything for everybody else to some degree. So following your own ambition, you might be a little bit afraid of doing that, like to get the disapproval. But this is like, no, you actually should look after yourself as well. That's really important in this because, things are going to kind of accelerate a bit, I think. Okay, let's look at these. So this is the divine masculine and divine feminine energy to balance, and it's sort of represented by a goddess and a god. Oh, perfect. So Aphrodite is the goddess. Yes, self-love. Like there is something beautiful about you. There is something that should shine and be seen, and like that. And as I say, very pure emotional energy. So it's like, don't be afraid that you're going to be corrupted by the system. You just need to kind of look after yourself in the system. And then we have Aries, war. So it's like, take action. Don't, if something is toxic, if something like told you shouldn't do this, if something made you scared about that, or if somebody tries to go, through the boundaries you put up, be prepared to have the battle if you need to have it. But for the most part, just look after yourself. That's all you really need to do to move past this. You're meant to be successful in some way. You're meant to be seen in some way. And it's like how you reconcile that and not have it as something that makes you a bit afraid. Okay, let's also get you some astrology planetary pairings to help as well. Sun and Pluto. Pluto's been really big in these. It kind of makes sense. If we're breaking through fears, Pluto is a very kind of like, fear is a Plutonian sort of feeling. Your life path is going to change, and allowing it to change and allowing your own power to come into being is really important in this. So this is about your life path. It's not unrealistic. It's not selfish. It's not narcissistic. It's not any of the things you might have been told. Equally, you have the power to put the boundaries around this if your fear is the implications of becoming well known. And we have Venus and Pluto. Yeah, fall in love with the change. And make sure what you're changing is towards what you love and you feel is beautiful. Maybe there's also like change how you change your identity, change how you appear in some way to allow you to deal with this, if that fits. It doesn't have to be, but it could be that, it's like, put on a wig and, like do different sort of makeup if you want to at first sort of like test what you do without being so visible, like whatever it is that works for you. But like fall in love with the change as well, because this change is actually meant to take you to being who you're meant to be in the world. Okay. So lastly, in case you didn't listen to the introduction, because not everybody does, I did say that I'm going to finish off with asking you to choose from numbers 1 to 5, because I'm going to I'm shuffling a tarot deck right now. I'm going to lay out 5 cards, and depending upon what number you chose, when I get to that will be the final message that brings this together for you. So if you haven't already chosen one, choose one now, pause and choose, and then turn back on whatever you need to do, because I'm shuffling now to lay out the 5 cards. So for number 1, we have Knight of Cups. For number 2, we have 10 of Cups reversed. For number 3, we have Knight of Wands reversed. For number 4, we have the Ace of Pentacles. And for number 5, we have the Page of Swords. Okay. I'm going to look all of this through the lens of what helps you to become more known, more seen in some way, because this is what this is about. And if you have a fear about it, like knowing how to do this and manage it is what is important. With Knight of Cups, if you chose number 1, this is either about, as long as you love what you're doing, then you will get the right offers that come towards you. If you don't, then it's not the true integrity. It's not the true identity. Don't shift for that. Make sure that your heart is connected to it. The other thing is that this may be triggered in some way because it's shown up a bit by a love relationship for the people who chose number 1. For number 2, the stuff about family is really big in this. There's either your family doesn't approve of this sort of thing, or there's been a lot of family drama because, the family's been very public in some way. Like letting go of those energies and claiming your own direction is important. If you chose number 3, there's sort of a thing here about you don't have to hurry this. Don't have to be, in a rush. And you also don't have to necessarily get up and move or anything like that. Like take your time and work out what you want to do. You'll get where you need to go, but you don't have to rush it in any way. If you chose number 4, there's an opportunity pretty much right now or about to come in. It has a lot of potential. It's a blessing because it's an ace, and it's an ace that's upright. It's very material. It's likely to grow for you financially or materially in some way. So make sure you're ready to work with that. So work through these fears so you're ready to work with that. And if you chose number 5, a large chunk of this has to do with how you communicate. I do think for some of you it's about having a really good PR team or a really good social media presence or something like that you can control and that you can make sure the message is what you want. If you have that, then you pretty much can get above what it is that you're worried about. Because there's nothing in you that's going to do something so transgressive that it's likely to cause a problem that you're known. But I do think that it's a complicated environment and there's some toxic people around it and all that kind of thing, because there often is when anything is public in some way. So communication is the key. Your own communication and or getting a good communication team around you. So I hope you enjoyed that reading. I hope it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.